The Land and Agricultural Development Bank of South Africa says it generated group profits of 372.2 million in the year ended March 2017. That's compared to a profit just shy of 182 million for the previous year. However, the bank did see impairments rise on the back of the severe drought last year. Despite this, it increased disbursements to new projects by over 4 billion rand in the period under review. That drove its gross loan book up by 11% to just under 44 billion rand. My colleague Nompumelelo Siziba is standing by with the Land Bank CEO, TP Nchocho.
Thanks very much, Nzinga. Thank you, sir, for joining us. We just want to know, your group profit was up by over 100%. How much of this has to do with controlling costs? Because we did see that your impairments did rise.
No, I think it substantively had to do with an increase in our lending volumes, particularly on the back of improving agricultural conditions. You know, with the weather improving late last year and rainfalls beginning to come back, what we saw, particularly towards the end of the last quarter of our financial year, was a significant spike in the volumes of advances that we made out to agricultural sector as farmers were beginning to plant their hectareage. I mean, you will know this, there was about a 35% increase in the hectareage that was planted in addition, just as a consequence of rainfalls improving. Yes, the costs we have managed to contain and contain them very well, but substantively it has been a consequence of the growth in our revenue producing assets, which are mainly our loans.
And what about the impairments that you incurred as a result, obviously, of the drought crisis?
Correct. You know, with improving drought conditions in the form of rainfall coming back, what has then happened is that a lot of the farmers have had better yield performance on their farms. Those who farm livestock are beginning to see better quality of livestock. And so, where we have seen a downward trending in the levels of counterparties coming under pressure from a debt service point of view. So the rain has been a great blessing for this sector, which is so concentrated but so important for us.
Indeed, yeah. Thank goodness for the rain. Now, in the year under review, you state that you made new disbursements of about 4.8 billion rand. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. Just give us some examples of the type of projects that you've been funding and the associated job creation. Yes,
that's a great question, because an institution such as ourselves, the Development Finance Institution, is largely measured in terms of its performance by how much money it puts into the economy in order to increase the size of investment to bring additional productive capacity into the economy. So, for instance, in the sugarcane industry in Natal, a very interesting project that we did where an additional 1,400 hectares of communal land, we extended a facility of about 400 million rand there, and we are working with technical partners on the ground. In other words, NOMPU is a closed-loop system where land is secured on long-term leases, funding is made available for production and mechanization. There are technical partners on the ground who help the farmers to implement better and improved farming methods, and there is a take-off arrangement to take product to market through a sugar company that buys the entire output. You've actually jumped the gun a bit, because I was going to ask you that very same question, to say that in the whole land redistribution process, there's been a concern that many black farmers or many black people who get farmland, because of lack of skills and resources, they're not able to use the land optimally. And I was going to ask you what sort of interventions that you're putting in. So you're making sure that basically people have resources in terms of cash and also technical expertise so that they can optimize the land. That's correct. I mean, another interesting project that we involved in the Free State, it's a livestock farm, and it's what is called a value chain model, where there is an anchor farmer, an established white commercial farm family that has been farming there for many years, but we have built around him, in partnership with him, an ecosystem of about 59, 60 small-scale farmers, emerging black farmers, and guess what? They have received land from government, yes, but the funding has come from us, and the technical support for running a proper breeding program with the animals, feeding them appropriately, administering medication, taking them into a feedlot environment so that they get fattened up, so that they are ready for market. That entire support system is underpinned by a commercial farmer partner in the area. And I can go on and on about similar
I can tell,
yeah.
But we're running out of time, but I have to ask you this question. There's always that elephant in the room with state-owned enterprises, that of governance,
yes.
and so on and so forth. And we know that Future Growth had issues with yourselves and other SOEs, but you have since resolved those issues. Just tell us what's happening in terms of governance and what improvements have been made going forward.
Correct, fair question. And first of all, from our side as the Land Bank and probably our sister DFIs, we thought it was unfortunate that Future Growth had to lump us with everybody else, so to speak, because we then engaged with Future Growth, not only themselves, but other funders in the market. And the kind of improvements that we made to our governance systems were really not to address weaknesses. It was more to make enhancements. For instance, improving issues of transparency. Secondly, there was a requirement that perhaps we needed to enhance the number of independent non-executives in our credit committees. So it was, in my view, marginal enhancements. As you might recall, the Land Bank was the first institution to restore its relationship with Future Growth and
Indeed.
to continue the funding program.
Indeed. Well, your story sounds great, but unfortunately we've run out of time. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, that was TP Nchocho. He's the CEO at the Land Bank. It's now back to Nzinga in studio.